huge piece of transformation is practicing. Actually, how is it that we put these competencies inside of our body to really live the lives that we are meant to live, to really orient towards change and transformation, to be able to take those new and aligned moves inside of our lives that bring us closer to what we care about. Um, so we're always practicing something. So we might as well really be practicing towards what it is that we care about, towards those new actions.
Hello. Greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to our question and answer session for our Somatic Coach certification with the Strozzi Institute. Welcome, everybody. So nice to see you all here today. Welcome, welcome. And while we're all entering, can we please, I'd like to invite you to put in the chat where you're calling us from today, or what's your location. I'd love to see where everybody is coming in from today. I'll start with putting mine in. I'm calling from Denver, Colorado. Lovely. Ah, how nice. Welcome, everyone. Good to see everybody. Love to see all your faces here today. If you have an opportunity to use your camera today, we would love to see faces. However, not necessary at all. And then also, please, as a reminder, to keep yourself on mute throughout the call. There will be opportunities to ask questions later. Wonderful. I see some folks calling from Belgium, Washington, Massachusetts, California. Oh, two people from another person from the Netherlands, and two folks from Europe. Wonderful. Welcome everybody. Durham, North Carolina. We're going to wait a couple of more moments, and while everybody is still coming in and settling in, we are so happy to see you all here today. While we're doing that, I would like to go ahead and introduce myself. I am Denise Maes, and I am the Enrollment Director for the Strozzi Institute for Somatics. It's such a pleasure to see you all here today. And this specific call, this question and answer with teachers, is designed so that we can answer questions about our somatic coaching program. And specifically, we have some great things lined up today in terms of really sharing what the program's about and also practices. And it's really my pleasure to be able to introduce all who is on the call today. First, I'd like to acknowledge I have Andrea Ming, who is my colleague, also on the enrollment team that will be managing our tech today. Also, Randy Moore, who is our communications manager, is also on the call. And then our teachers, who are Stephanie Meux and Stepp. So welcome, everybody. And with that, what I would like to do is to go ahead and pass over to our teachers to get us started. Thank you so much.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Seeing some faces pop on video. It's orienting, as I'm sure you all know, when we're on Zoom to actually see, oh, there's people. There are real people there. So hi, and hi to those of you who are off camera. I'm Stephanie Meux. I use she, her pronouns, and I come from unceded Cherokee land, also known as Asheville, North Carolina. And I am a faculty member here at the Strozzi Institute for Somatics. And I primarily focus on teaching the Somatic Coach Certification Program and also Somatic Bodywork programs. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague and partner in crime and in teaching. Over to you, Bea.
Thanks, Stephanie. So great to be with all of you. Again, I'm Bea Stepp, they, them pronouns, and I live and work and do all the things I do on the lands of the Coast Salish and Duwamish people in Seattle, Washington. I'm also a faculty teacher here at Strozzi Institute for Somatics. I've been on path for 15 years, excuse me, this year. And yeah, I also have a coaching practice. And here at Strozzi Institute for Somatics, I teach almost everything that we teach. I teach ETs. Actually, I do teach everything we teach. I teach ELP, I teach SISC, I teach Train the Trainer, and I teach body work.
Exhausted and all that.
Yeah,
Grateful
exactly.
for you.
Yeah.
Great. You want
Yeah,
to
great.
start where we're going?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Steph. So, yeah, again, so glad to be with all of you today. Where we're going, our agenda for today is that we're going to start really with a primer about what is somatics, what really makes the Strozzi Institute for Somatics methodology what it is. What will we be up to inside of this methodology? What are we up to? And then really we'll give an overview. We'll get into some practice, excuse me, and then we'll go ahead and go over the structure of this program. So really like what's the foundation of this methodology? Let's apply this methodology. And then how is that specific to the somatic coaching program? And then of course at the end, there'll be lots of time for your questions and for you to get what you are curious about really met and answered. Yeah. Back to you, Steph.
Thanks. I want to start by, in this next phase, just acknowledging that some of you on the call have already taken our foundational course, Embodied Transformation. So welcome. And then also acknowledging that some of you have not yet taken a course with us. So we want to welcome you too. And I say that from the standpoint is that Bea and I are going to share, as they said, some of these foundational pieces. And if you have questions, regardless of whether you're new to the methodology or you've taken courses, please write those questions down. And as Denise said, we're going to have time for Q&A a little bit later. So welcome. And I want to start by sharing a little high level of what makes the Strozzi Institute methodology unique. And maybe even just a step before that, I want to say that as an institute, as an organization, as a community, we acknowledge that working in and through the body is not new. This is really ancient wisdom, and that Indigenous peoples, communities have been working in and through the body through practice and ritual for thousands and thousands of years. So this is not new. And what might be new, our perspective we might take here, is that Western culture is really attempting to try to reconnect with this wisdom of the body, and how do we transform and change in a sustainable way towards the future that we want to create for ourselves and those we love. So that's really kind of ground. And then want to share with you a little bit about the timeline of the evolution of this methodology, which has taken place really over 50 years of Richard Strozzi Heckler's career, but it has taken place because of really powerful collaborations. And the first collaboration was with a man named Robert Hall in the 1970s, and the two of them created what was called the Lomi School. And they were integrating things that they had studied, paths that they had been on in the domains of Western psychology, Gestalt therapy, meditation, sitting meditation, hands-on body work. And Richard was bringing in somatic practice or body-based practices that he adapted from the martial art of Aikido. And Richard is now a seventh Dan Aikido practitioner, teacher of teachers, and he was given permission from his teachers to bring those practices from Aikido into a transformational context. So taking it out of the martial context and bringing it into the domain of how do we change through the body. And so he and Robert were primarily working in the domains of personal growth and transformation. And then in the 90s, Richard started a decade-long collaboration with a man named Fernando Flores, who many of you may know. He's a Chilean linguist and philosopher. And Fernando's work at that time of their collaboration was going and working in organizations with leaders and with teams using language for action, so also known as speech acts. And Richard's contribution to that collaboration was essentially somatizing, meaning he offered somatic practices to leaders and teams to really feel the principles and embody the principles behind language for action. And what that was fostering was more leadership presence, exploring what does it mean to be a compelling leader, powerful leader, and also what does it mean to collaborate as a team so that teams could be more coordinate better and be more successful in meeting their objectives. And it was during that time that Richard was really starting to hone this notion of like, how do you train a coach? And coaches being an intermediary of going in and supporting, again, leaders and teams. And so he started to develop the kind of framework of training coaches. Also in the 90s, Stacy K. Haynes started as a student with Richard. And some of you may know Stacy and Stacy's work. She's the author of Politics of Trauma, and she's the co-founder of two organizations, Generation 5 and Generative Somatics, and ran the Strozzi Institute for many years. And really some of her big contributions to this methodology was the bringing social analysis to somatics. So looking and seeing about the development of the self and the soma through a social lens. So how do these bigger systemic forces actually impact our development and our transformation, and what does that take? That was one big contribution. She also really contributed the codifying of the methodology. So a lot of the images, the posters that you see if you've been in one of our courses, the ways that we talk about the methodology and teach the methodology, both in courses and really as teachers, come through her. So I say that from the standpoint is that Richard Strozzi Heckler has developed the methodology, but it was through those really profound collaborations that this methodology has come to be. So from there, I want to share a little bit specifically about how this methodology has been applied to coaching and coach development. And this is the moment where I'm going to ask Andrea if you're willing to bring up the 3 circles model. So those of you who have taken a course with us or been on a community dojo may have seen this. This is a framework that we work with inside this methodology, somatic transformation. And we talk about this in terms of really an ecosystem. That's hence the concentric circles here. And as coaches, what we're doing is we're utilizing or drawing upon somatic practices to cultivate somatic awareness. And somatic awareness being certainly awareness of our narratives, emotions that are taking place, but maybe even more importantly here in this work is awareness of sensation. And we also talk about this as the life of the body, kind of these foundational building blocks of how we perceive the world. And those foundational building blocks of sensation are pressure, perception of pressure, perception of movement, and perception of temperature. And it's pretty extraordinary that it's those 3 things that help us interpret the world we're experiencing. And then from there, we react as a really essentially an animal body, reacting and responding to the world. And over time, we begin to develop adaptive strategies of how to be in the world, reaction patterns, response patterns. And through somatic practice and somatic awareness, we're able to support our clients to get in touch with that primary life of the body. What are the impulses? What are the desires? What are the longings that are held in the body? And ultimately, by tapping into that life of the body and those desires, what we love, what we care about, we start to support the client in contacting their vision or their goals. Like, what's their intent? What do they want to make happen in their life or draw into their life? And also, in that same practice, we're tapping into those longings, and we're also supporting the client to contact what's getting in the way. So we talk about those in terms of adaptive strategies for taking care of 3 constitutive needs: safety, dignity, and belonging. And essentially, as human beings, we're in some ways always trying to take care of those constitutive needs. Usually, in early life, we develop what we call these conditioned tendencies, these strategies, and sometimes they're really adaptive and they're working for us. And sometimes at a certain point in our life, given what we care about and given what we want, we notice that, or we learn that those conditioned tendencies or strategies are actually getting in the way. And when under a certain amount of pressure, these ways of being pop out, even with our best intent or desire to do, react, or respond in another way. So through somatic practice, we're able to support the client to really get in touch with how those strategies live, not just in thought or belief, but really on the level of the tissues, on the level of impulse, on the set points of the nervous system. And through practice and process, we're building awareness. We really hold that awareness. Choice follows awareness. So once there's awareness, we have practices and processes to really work with those contractions, those patterns. And through practice, through somatic processes, we begin to soften or unwind those contractions that are held on the level of the tissue. And we call that territory somatic opening. A softening and opening of these core contractions, core patterns held in the body. And from the somatic opening, we say is the possibility, really new possibility for new, more aligned action towards what we care about, new ways of perceiving ourselves, experiencing those around us, experiencing the world. And so we talk about this as new shape, the new selves can come to be. And then we go back to somatic practices. And the question that we get into as somatic coaches is, okay, so if our client has made their way to somatic opening, there's a little more space for new possibility. What are the new practices that they need to be in to fulfill on their commitment, their declaration, their vision, what they want in their life? And so essentially we move in this ecosystem, again, of somatic practice, somatic awareness, and somatic opening to facilitate transformation. And again, pulling that thread of that Stacey Haynes brought to us is that all of this individual transformation is happening inside of social context, these bigger systemic forces. That's happening all the time. We're living and being and acting inside of social forces, social conditions. And we're also living and being and changing inside of landscape. Connection with earth, connection with place. And then we also hold that it's happening inside of spirit, or however you might name the more. That's the ecosystem that we're transforming inside of. And we would say, and those of you who have been in courses with us have probably heard this or read this, that we consider somatic transformation has occurred when we can take new and more aligned action in alignment with what we care about, even under the same old pressure. I'm just going to say that again so that we can all kind of feel for that inside of ourselves, that transformation has happened in us and as coaches for our clients when they can take new actions in alignment with what they care about or what they've declared for their life, even under the same old pressures. So that's the underpinning of the approach to somatic coaching. And we hold that if we want to be a somatic coach, we have to do this work ourselves. We have to be in our own practice so that we know this from the inside out. And then we're better able to facilitate this process with our clients, in collaboration with our clients, for the sake of what they care about. So I'm going to pause there. That was a lot of words. Another thing we like to say inside this methodology, and Andrea, thank you, you can take the slide down, is that knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the body. So I said a lot of things, and so I want to hand it over to you, B, to bring us into practice and really for all of you to experience it and see what's true for you.
Great. Thank you, Steph. Am I spotlighted? There I am. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Steph. So, as Steph named, a huge piece of transformation is practicing. Actually, how is it that we put these competencies inside of our body to really live the lives that we are meant to live, to really orient towards change and transformation, to be able to take those new and aligned moves inside of our lives that bring us closer to what we care about. So we're always practicing something. So we might as well really be practicing towards what it is that we care about, towards those new actions. So we're going to begin with a practice called centering. And what we get to be up to when we center is we get to do the thing, we get to put the new shape inside of our body of becoming more open, of becoming more present, of becoming more connected to ourselves, to each other, and what it is that we care about. So you can join me either seated or standing, just checking in with your body. But either way, it's like, can you be in a position that lets you have more access to really your whole body from your head all the way down to your feet? And as you arrive in the position that you're going to be in for this practice, again, that we call centering, can you let yourself take some breaths that allow you to drop into your body? It's like so much of our lives are really lived up here for very good reason. The social context that we're in really privileges thought over the rest of our knowing. So can you take breaths that really bring you in more contact with this whole body below your neck? And as you do that, you might begin to notice that there's a whole world of those sensations and experiences that Stephanie named. There's thoughts that are here. There's a mood and emotion that you're coming to this time of practice with. And then there's those pieces. There's temperature here. And there's pressure here. And there's movement. We can feel temperature as hot, cold, cool, warm. We can feel pressure as tightness, looseness, places where there's more density, places where there's more airiness. We can feel movement as really the movement of our breath. We can also feel it as tingling, buzzing, pulsing, streaming. And then really coming into contact with what is here. This is the first part of our centering, really noticing, okay, how am I? How am I when I drop below my neck? What is the aliveness that's here? And then from the place of noticing that aliveness, let yourself go ahead and feel for your center, which if you place your thumb in your belly button and then let your hand float down, This is our physical center of gravity. So when we speak of center, we're not speaking of an idea. We're really speaking of, oh, there's a place here. There's a place that I get to bring more of myself. So can you actually do that? Can you let more of your aliveness, more of your attention really come behind your hand into this place we call center? You might breathe there. You might feel your hand from the inside out. And you might place a hand at the back of your center too, really knowing that we are three-dimensional beings here. And then from the place again of noticing the center, of really living from this place of center, again, what we get to do from here is become more open, present, connected. Center gives us the capacity to be in contact with more, to have more choice. And so you can leave your hands here as long as you'd like, but we'll center in 4 dimensions. And the first is our length. And so really letting yourself feel the ground underneath you here. Like, can you let the soles of your feet spread out? And can you let your body get a little more heavy towards the earth? Can you let the knees bend slightly and the tailbone move down? And at the same time that you do that, can you let yourself begin to lift? Can you let yourself begin to stretch towards the sky? And from really the place of these bodily cues, can you invite in the knowing of, oh, there's dignity inside of me, inside of this dimension of length. I get to know that I matter, and I get to extend mattering beyond myself to you and to us. Here we are in the dimension of length. And then letting yourself expand outward, getting present now in the dimension of width. So from the center line of you here, can you let yourself unfold out to the edges of you? Feeling that there's a center line and there are edges. Can you let the muscles of your body, can you let the tissues of your body begin to unfold, to take up more space inside of you, to soften, to let out, to let down? And then here it might really be like, oh, also there's parts of me that perhaps aren't so shored up. And so it's like, how do I actually bring more structure into certain parts of me so that I can really unfold, so I can live inside of these edges? And then here you might also feel that there's a world beyond you, from this place of really feeling for what's inside of your edges, expanding to your edges. Can you feel, oh, okay, here's the world beyond me. Here's the edges of my skin. Here are other living things in the room I'm in. And in so feeling this, can you come into contact with, there's a you and there's a not you here. There's a you and there's a not you here. And both get to really live here at the same time. Both are living here at the same time. Good. And as you let that be here, then can you let yourself begin to move into your depth, moving into your depth, your back body? And as you feel for back body, like, can you really bring more sensation and more contact with sensation from the back of your head all the way to your heel? And then from that place, letting sensation be an anchor into the past of what's shaped you. And without thinking too much about it, it's like, oh, like, who are my people? What are the lands that I'm from? Like, what does sensation actually have to say about that? And can I let myself live there a little more? Oh. And then from that place, can I come through? And can I feel for my front body? Can I feel for my front body? Really lighting up the sensation from face to feet. And from the place of that sensation, letting my aliveness out into a future. into a future that you will create, into a future that you are a part of shaping. And so here in this dimension of depth, really being with what's shaped us at our back and what we will shape at our front. And then really letting all of this come to meet back at center here and asking center the question, what matters to me? Like really, what is the life that I'm longing for? Perhaps here it's like, oh, like what was the longing that had me sign up for this call, that really had me curious about the path of transformation, the path of becoming a somatic coach? You can let yourself feel for that. And it's like, how does that answer come more from the body? Good. And as you let yourself feel for that, can you also organize around that longing so that it gets to be like 2% more true? I don't want to limit you to 2%, but at least 2% more true right now. So it's like, oh, if my longing is toward more love, what do I have to soften? What has to brighten in me? If my longing is to rest and ease, what has to relax? If my longing is towards my power, what do I have to galvanize inside these tissues right now? Good feeling for all of that. And then just letting yourself notice your mood. It's like one of the core pieces of our work inside of transformation is that practice changes us. Practice changes us. We have the power to change on purpose. And so really noticing in yourself right now, how has practice changed me? How have I let practice change me? And from this place, I want to invite you into the chat 2 things. One, what are you noticing on the other side of centering? And with that, what's your mood? What's your mood? What are you noticing? What's the learning here? And so as you are populating those in the chat, I just want to also mention a couple of things really about how centering is definitely our core somatic practice inside of this lineage, inside of this methodology. It's really the practice that all of our other practices are based off of. And, you know, as someone who's been a practitioner in this work, it's like we can really track the long arcs of change inside of people, inside of our clients. And we can really trace that to moments of practice over and over and over again. And, you know, just yesterday I was with a client and something they were mentioning to me, they were inside of a conflict with their roommate. And they were sharing this piece with me of like, wow, B, you know, we've been working together for almost 4 years here. And before, inside of my conflicts, inside of places where I was having a relational rupture with someone, I would really have a difficult time trusting myself. And because of centering, this client was like, but now I can actually come back to myself and be like, no, this is what I care about. These are the bodily cues that are there inside of me. And that's almost like a rubric around like what I can trust inside of the assessments or feedback I'm getting from someone else. And then what I really know to be true inside of me. So this really opened up a whole world of trust inside of this client that she had a place to come back to inside of herself to really base her own knowing off of. And that's really the power of centering. Yeah. And that's why we center. That's why it's our foundational practice. Seeing these in the chat here. Yeah, I've noticed greater widening of my shape frame and my mood is more easeful, unrestricted, calm. Yeah, thanks, Denise. Grateful, curious, more grounded, clear. Yeah, I'm noticing tension, feeling much more clarity and less grasping. Yeah, noticing peace and slowness. Now, one more piece here that I'll just name is that we don't center to get feeling more calm or to feel any one way. We center to be more in contact with life and have more capacity to meet the emotions, to meet the experiences of aliveness that are actually there inside of us. So just like I mentioned with this dear client of mine, it's like the feelings of being in conflict, those aren't good feelings, a lot of questioning of themselves inside of this experience, right? But still, the clarity that comes through center of, oh, this is my truth. The clarity of being in alignment through the tissues of the body with what they care about. Yeah. Thank you so much for your practice. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Stephanie from here for an overview of the program.
Thanks, B. Appreciate being in practice with all of you. And yeah, I wanted to spend a little bit of time here talking about the form or format of the program. And there are a few major components, one of it being in-person sessions. There are four-day retreats or modules. And then there are calls. And the general themes of calls are we have methodology calls, which focus specifically on these pieces of the methodology that of that 3 circles model. There's an somatic arc of transformation and sites of shaping, sites of change. And so we do a deeper dive into the aspects of those components of the methodology, and then also how we apply that in an embodied way to our coaching work with clients. We also have 4 coach competency calls. Our program is accredited by the International Coach Federation, or ICF, and we are accredited to train coaches up to the PCC level. And so the coach competency calls is also an integration of International Coach Federation core competencies, and then also somatic core competencies. So we're in those calls, we're looking at those, that interface. Another big component of this program is mentor coaching. And inside the mentor coaching, which is really support in between those in-person modules, as are the calls. But the mentor coaching, there are 4 1-hour one-to-one mentor coaching calls. And then there are 4 video review sessions. So you will be practicing with clients as part of this work. You'll record yourself and you'll submit that to your mentor coach. The mentor coach will watch those videos and then have a 1-hour debrief call, learning call with you. And there are also 4 small group mentor coaching calls. So we divide the cohort up into small groups and assign them to a mentor coach. And so you'll have small group calls. Another aspect of the program is home study. There's pre-work, reading, writing, preparation to start the program, and then there's home study reflection as part of it. And an essential part that B spoke to is practice. You'll be in somatic practices, and we ask you to do daily practice as part of the training. And then, as I mentioned, you'll be working with clients. We ask you to take on 5 practice clients, and we ask you to do a 10-session arc with those clients as part of the program. You'll also be assigned a buddy, 1 or 2 buddies, as a part of the program, both for accountability around your practices, but also we'll be inviting you to do some Zoom calls or practice if you're close in proximity, some practice with that buddy. So those are the big components. I'll just say them again. There's in-person sessions. In between, there are methodology calls, coach competency calls, and then mentor coaching. And home study, which includes practice, somatic practice. You'll have a buddy, and then you'll be practicing with clients. So that's really the form that the program takes. And I want to pause there and actually hand it over to you, Denise, so that you can talk a little bit about enrollment and application.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie. I would briefly just like to share for those of you that are considering the program and want to imagine a pathway and plan it in terms of planning. is that the first step that we begin is with fulfillment of embodied transformation, which is our foundation course. There we learn the practices that we build upon in the coaching program and other advanced courses. Once that is fulfilled, then the next step is to stay in practice, to continue to center and do these foundational practices that support us in our arc. Perhaps even work with a somatic coach, which is highly recommended before we step into the somatic coaching program. So those are some things that we recommend. Then the actual process is then to fill out an application. So the application really focuses on really sharing with us what are you longing for in terms of this program? What do you want to do with this coaching practice? What are the things that you've been doing that are preparing you for the program, such as other kinds of support or other kinds of practice that would also support you? We also then ask, after completion of the application, that you set up an interview with the enrollment director, which is me. And what this is about an hour. And what we are doing in that time together is we have a set of standardized questions that I ask. I ask these questions in the same way and in the same order for all of our candidates so that I can have an understanding of really the candidate, of who you are. And then what I'm looking for, I want to share with you, I always say this, is there's no secret knock or handshake in terms of getting into the program. Really, what I'm really listening for is readiness for the program, deep understanding of what's going to happen in the program, answering questions as well about the program, as well as understanding what you want to do with your coaching practice. And also really knowing too that sometimes that's a place of curiosity. Some folks that want to become a somatic coach don't know what kind of coaching practice they want to have yet, that's still something that they're really in curiosity about. That's great too. Also, being able to share things like what your commitment is, that speech act that Stephanie had mentioned earlier. What is that? And how are the conditions of satisfaction, which is how we measure, like how do I know that I am aligning toward my longings and my commitment? Those are the kinds of questions that I ask. Then upon the completion of the interview, then there will be an invitation to enter the program or wait, or let's do some other things to stay on path and try again. So there's that process that comes in through this arc of really getting to know each other and getting to know our candidates as they come into the program. Then that's the application process. That's how we get in there. And I do have lots of information about other logistical questions that we'll save for later for our question and answer session. That's the application process. That's how that looks. And I'm going to go ahead and pause there and save more time for questions later. And I'll go ahead and pass it back to the teachers. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, I think actually we've shared a lot. There's been a lot of words. We practiced, and this actually is the time that we want to open up for some questions, question and answer. And really the field is open. We're open to questions about the methodology, about the program, about enrollment. So I'm just going to open it up, and you can raise your hand. I think Andrea will help us field questions. You're also welcome to put questions in the chat, and we'll take a look there, and really we'll share the response. So we'll be doing some handing out between Bea and Denise and myself. I always love these moments of quiet. And in the somatic world, we're like, great, keep feeling into you. And like, really, what do you want to know? And if you hear, I'm good, great, but really let yourself feel into like, what would be useful for me to know if this is a right step for me? Recognize it's a big one, of investment of time and money. So we want you all to have the information you need to make that decision.
There's a question here in the chat stuff. Will the program teach us how to set up a coaching practice? Yeah, so I assume this is the business portion of a coaching practice. And no, that's not specifically part of what this program promises to do. Although I'll say this, it's like as someone who has set up a coaching practice, some of the pieces that were the most essential to that for me were really doing my own work around shame, around imposter syndrome, around entering, around really being able to move towards my longings, so that when I had the information of what it was like to market myself, what it was like to, start a business, all of those things, that my own soma and my own conditioned tendencies wouldn't get in the way. I also come with a lot of those competencies of business type stuff because of my background. And I would say the thing that was actually the hardest for me was my own shaping around starting a practice. And, as I've been doing this work now for 12 years of being a coach, I can say the thing that continues to be the hardest thing inside of my coaching practice is my own soma and my own shaping. It's like, oh gosh, like those boundaries of not overscheduling myself, those boundaries around raising my coaching rates, things like that. Continue to be the pieces that I contend with. So I don't want to minimize like the business aspect of this. And I just want to also really provide ground that this program gives us the tools to really be able to confront and work with and meet the pieces of ourselves that might get in the way of really actualizing what would be traditionally called a business plan. Yeah. And there's plenty of places that hold those types of courses and work around what is it actually like to implement a business plan. Yeah. Anything you would add to that, Stepp?
Yeah. Towards the end of the program, one of the home study assignments that we invite you into is doing a reflection on what your offer is.
Yeah.
And the distinction, as B was pointing to, it's like the offer we might make today from ahead of like an idea of what the offer it is that you want to make to the world or to clients is likely going to be different or have a different tone or quality after you've done some work. You've had some time to really sense and feel for what's the impact you want to have on the world and with whom. And so we do have this assignment where you're in that reflection, and some of the language is like, what are the promises that comes from the speech acts part of our lineage? What are the promises you want to make to clients? Meaning, I have this way of working. This is what it can produce. And this is what I know it will support a client with. And that becomes very powerful language to have embodied in you, to know what your offer is, and then to be able to articulate that. And in many ways, that's a core magnetizing for clients, and also being able to articulate or market your offer into the world. So that's a big piece of what we're looking at towards the end of the program. And there'll be lots of resources in terms of just talking to us as teachers who, as B said, we've started our own practices, mentor coaches, other people in your cohort who have different competencies. Many people who come to the program are already coaches and consultants, and they're coming because they want to deepen or they want to integrate this approach to their work. So also a community of resource and support. On the glasses to be able to see any the chat. Are there any, I see Beth, are there any costs associated with the program beyond the application fee and cost of the program that we should budget for, like mentor coaching? Great. I will start with my response, and then if I'm forgetting anything, Denise, please come in, or B, if you've got anything on that. There are a few additional costs. We work with a platform, a technological platform called Ray Notes, and that's how we receive and view the video review sessions. And there is a small fee for getting your video transcribed. And that's how we look at, and we do have a handout, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, of these additional costs. Mentor coaching is part of the program. So all of those hours, there's no additional cost. If you decide as a student that you want additional mentor coaching outside of what's part of the program, you coordinate that with the individual mentor coach and pay the rate that they charge. We do strongly recommend that if you haven't received somatic coaching, that you do receive somatic coaching. The best way we know how to do the work is by receiving the work. It's not a requirement of the program, but we recommend it. And we can certainly get you connected to some of the teachers are available for one-on-one somatic coaching work, but that could be an additional cost. If you're taking the program in Petaluma, we have somatic body workers. Again, that's a unique feature of this methodology is hands-on somatic body work. In Petaluma, we have somatic body workers who are available to offer one-on-one sessions before or after the days and the in-person, and that's an additional cost to them if you choose to have somatic body work. Anything else? Oh, purchasing. We do ask that you read a couple of books. The Art of Somatic Coaching, The Anatomy of Change, and Stacy's book, The Politics of Trauma. So those would be costs. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting, Denise?
Thank you, Steph. And you reminded me of one of the costs for Ray Notes. So thank you. I did not remember that with some of our conversations. So I'm glad to be reminded of that. There are a few others that really happen after for our participants that are interested in certifying with the International Coaching Federation or ICF. And that is once you complete in our program and then go to ICF for your final steps, there are exam fees that are charged by that organization. It's a multiple choice questionnaire. And then also the fees associated with that organization to become a member of their program. So those are things that they charge for their organization if you wanted to continue on that pathway to be certified at those either at the associate level or the professional level, which as we had mentioned earlier, that we are certified through the PCC or professional level. And so, yeah, those are the associated costs. And then specifically, the mentor coaching is included. And so if you've had an opportunity to look at other coaching programs outside of the Strozzi Institute, you'll know that some of the programs ask for you to purchase or to organize with coaches to do your certification and assessment process outside of the organization. So all of that is included in ours, with the exception of what happens when you go to the International Coaching Federation and become part of their organization. So, and Steph, you just gave a great idea. We will have a list of all the extra costs. So there isn't one that currently exists. And I think that would be super helpful. So yeah, we will get that together and then add that for public knowledge so that folks on the website can see that. So wonderful. Yes. I see here that we have another question.
Yeah, I can
See here.
jump on this one from you, Audrey, about the program in Italy. Maybe I'll just take a moment here to name that we run this program both in Petaluma, in Washington, D.C., and currently in Italy. And the program is taught in English. Obviously, that cohort is multilingual, but the requirement at this time is that you speak English or can be in the training in English. And just a little nuance there is that we are learning to work with, through Ray Notes, coaches who want to speak in their first language, and being able to do video reviews and have those translated. So there's ways that we're working in that domain with multilingual folks. Be fun to have you there.
I have a question. It's about the Embodied transformation program. So, like, I wanted to know how important is it? Is it really like a mandatory thing to have had, or can I just directly start?
I'll go ahead and answer. So thank you for your question. And so, did I understand that you were curious if embodied transformation was necessary for the coaching program? Is that yes. Okay. So yes, it is. And for many reasons. And so would love to share that we really honor that individuals have had lots of other experiences and transformative work before they reach us. So we really consider this many rivers that really run through and cross into what we do, and really honoring that lineage and other methodologies that participants have had before they come to us. And yes, specifically, we do ask that participants in the somatic coaching program take embodied transformation as their foundation work. So yes, so in terms of looking at the long arc of what the program offers, it's 4 days of the foundation work plus the 16 days in terms of in-person coursework. So yeah, it's a 20-day commitment to be in the program.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I add a piece here just from a methodological standpoint too, from a teacher perspective? Yeah, I mean, I think I just really want to lift up again what Denise said, and yeah, like honor the commitment of time and money and intention really behind what it is to commit to this path. And it really is a path, and we hold it as a path, you know. And so outside of the money piece of it, what I also want to say is that we're like when we are becoming coaches, we are also committing to a path of practice, which means that we are committing to really change ourselves. And what we know is that it just takes a lot of time and a lot of repetitions of all of these practices to really be transformed. And so, from really the moment that we are stepping onto the mat, so to speak, we are committing to that path of practice that doesn't end after our 16 days on the mat end. You know, it's like literally every day in my life as a practitioner, I get up, I center, I do my morning practices, I sit every morning, you know, before I see my first client, I center. That's part of really being on path. And that's what allows us to do the work that we do, because we are the really the vessel through which this work flows. And so, you know, I want to say is like, yes, there are material costs, and the intention of that from our side is not like spend more money. It's really like be someone who's on path, who is a competent human, who can do this work well and be a responsible holder of it. So just really want to name that from the teacher side too.
Okay.
Thanks for that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would like to, Sarah Ann, thank you for your question about how often the embodied transformation course is offered. And thank you, Andrea put in there our course calendar. I'd like to mention that in general, embodied transformation is a course that's offered often. So typically it can be anywhere between monthly to every 2 months in the US, which would be offered on the West Coast or on the East Coast. Also, want to share for our audiences that are in Europe and outside of the US is that we also offer embodied transformation in Europe. And we do that through a sponsorship. So we work with organizations that are in Europe. And what that does is it really helps us carry the programs in the way that is most supportive to our participants, in that these partners hold the logistics, the planning, also the administration and the enrollment process. And then what we are doing as an organization is we're providing a standardized curriculum along with Strozzi trained teachers. So the experience, the foundational work, the standardized delivery, so to speak, is standardized. So you can use foundation, you can attend the foundation program, Embodied Transformation, anywhere. And that can serve as your first step into any advanced coursework, which includes the Somatic coaching program and others. So so it happens often. And in terms of planning for the Somatic coaching program, generally, the more space that you can have in between the time you take embodied transformation to stepping into coaching program is ideal. We get to have more repetition. We get to have more practice. We get to continue to really feel and sense into what our longings are, so that we are prepared and ready and have space for the Somatic coaching program. So the more space, the better. However, it is not unheard of for someone to take embodied transformation in 1 month and then to be in the coaching program three months later. That happens. Absolutely. It happens often. So those are suggestions in terms of preparation. What I had mentioned before is like, those are things that we really want to do to be prepared. So yeah, a little bit about embodied transformation, how we offer it, and really how it supports pathway. Any other questions that would be helpful at this time? Questions to the teachers or to me, anything that would be helpful? Wonderful. Well, it looks like, unless I'm seeing anything else, I'm not seeing any other hands up or in the chat, it feels like we might be complete. So with that, let's see here, looking at our outline, making sure I'm not missing anything. Lovely. Well, with that, I would like to thank you all for attending today our question and answer. And before we sign off, Stepp or B, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Any last closing remarks before we end today?
What you got, B?
It's so good to be with all of you, and to see some familiar faces, to be with new faces, and just really want to encourage you to make this decision through the life of your body. It's really like, what does practice reveal to you around your next steps, and really a deep trust that body and practice itself will lead the way. And hope to see you in our rooms in some configuration, and just a lot of trust inside of what you will decide. Thanks for being here.
Just echo really thank you for your time and your interest, your curiosity, and just know that we are here if you have further questions. Deep appreciation for Denise and Andrew and Randy for all the things that you all do to make this program possible and to field so many of those questions. So just sending a lot of love and appreciation to each of you as an essential part of this team and this program. And really, as B said, we hope to see many of you on the mat. Thanks for your time.
Lovely. Thank you both. Thank you both for your time and your commitment to this, and your deep care for all of the participants in our classrooms. It's always really felt. And with that, I'd like to just mention a couple of things in the chat here. I have placed in here the link to our Somatic coaching page, our course page. A lot of the information that we share today, you can find right there. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Andrea, to please put in our contact information. So if you have any questions for the enrollment team or if you would like to set up a call with me to talk a little bit more, if you have some more specific questions that pop up after the call ends today, I am a resource here for you, and would love to connect in any way that would be supportive. And also open to emails as well if it's just something that would be better that way. So either way, lots of ways to connect with us. And so with that, again, it's been a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share a bit more about the Somatic Coaching Program with the Strozzi Institute for Somatics. So with that, invite you all to come off of mute, put your camera on if it's not already on, and say goodbye. And really grateful for our time together today.
You all.
Thank you. Bye, folks.